Welcome to CFOs in Motion, presented by CFO Intelligence with your host, Andrew Zezas. Dynamic and direct one-on-one interviews with CFOs and executives from enterprise and middle market companies. And now, here's your host, Andrew Zezas.
Hey everyone, welcome to CFOs in Motion, where highly accomplished CFOs at middle market and enterprise companies share their views and insights. I'm your host, Andrew Zezas. Today we have an exciting and timely discussion in store for you. I'm joined by an incredibly accomplished finance executive and longtime friend, Jorge Garcia. Jorge is Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of Arcade Beauty. Arcade Beauty is an Oaktree Capital-owned company which manufactures and provides packaging solutions for the prestige beauty and personal care industries. Arcade Beauty is headquartered in New York City and has 13 production sites worldwide with annual revenues of approximately $400 million and 2,400 employees. Jorge Garcia joined Arcade Beauty in 2020 and is responsible for providing strategic financial leadership, driving shareholder value, communicating the company's strategies and performance to the investor community, and supporting the company's growth and return on investment goals. Jorge previously served as Chief Financial Officer of RAB Lighting, a leader in the development of LED lighting and control systems. He was there from 2017 through 2019. He was also at D&M Group, a global designer and manufacturer of premium audio products from 2010 through 2017. Now, prior to that time, Jorge held several progressive roles with KPMG and is a certified public accountant. Jorge holds a BBA from Pace University and is based in New York City. Now, today, Jorge will discuss with us the challenges and rewards of dealing with resource constraints while driving growth. Jorge, I'm so pleased that you and I are able to put this interview together today and that you're able to join me. Thank you so much for being here on CFOs in Motion.
Andy, good to see you again, and I appreciate that background and invite to this. Excited to take this conversation with you.
So let's get right into our conversation. We're talking about driving growth in a crazy economy with supply chain issues and resource constraints. Companies aren't able to capture the products that they need or the components that they need. What's it like to serve as a CFO of a company with resource and capital constraints?
Andy, it's extremely challenging, right? I think what we have, seen here, particularly at Arcade, is that we can't do it all, right? So, from an internal perspective, leadership, and working with the teams that we serve around the globe, it's about prioritizing. And so, from a leadership perspective, what I've communicated is, hey, pick three things and do them really well instead of trying to take too much on your plate. Really, I think the environment that we're in forces us to really look at the things that are going to move the needle in the short term, but obviously keeping an eye on our strategy long term.
So tell me about the greatest challenges. In the last few years, we've had a tumultuous time, and we're in tumultuous times now, but what have been the greatest challenges that you've encountered?
I mean, so as you all know, we went through a pandemic. I joined this business in 2020, as you said, and within my first 3 months, we were talking about something happening in China and maybe something coming over here. So we had the pandemic. So, and then that quickly forced us to go down a different path, partnering up with our lenders and refinancing. So, we went through a refinancing plan in our first, and a strategic plan at that in our first 12 months that I had been here, probably earlier than we anticipated. So that was a quick pivot. And as we sort of distance ourselves out of the pandemic, and I'm saying things that many CFOs that are listening to this understand well, is the environment shifted, and we've been focused a lot on supply chain uncertainty, lead times being very, very well extended, and of course now the inflation that is sustaining itself, continuously, right? So we've talked about here that we've seen inflation, but there's no end in sight to inflation, and so we've been sort of battling those titanic shifts in our business, and it's forced us to reprioritize and pivot along the way.
Right. Wow. Well, you've got a lot on your plate, I'm sure. Talk to me about what's going on in the world with respect to your labor base. Last month, there were 11.3 million open positions in the United States alone. 11.3. How are you guys contending with hiring quality employees and retaining them?
So it's hard. And I think, we talk a lot about material lead times, the transportation, the energy, but the people's been, particularly challenging, especially for our production workforce and what we see happening with the Amazon and the Walmarts of the world, where unemployment's really low. So the supply base of labor is tight. We've done a lot of things. I think Arcade's got a great reputation in the market. We're a good place to be. But we've obviously had to respond to labor inflation and increase sort of, our value offerings that we have in the marketplace, including, hourly rate increases well above, minimum. So we've had to be competitive. What I'd say is, we have seen, and I'm sure many have seen the same thing, is, hiring new talent is taking longer. And it's forced us to sort of, maximize what we have. We've increased overtime where needed. Shifts have been added, but particularly that third shift has been challenging for us. So what I'd say, Andy, is you do the best you can, but everyone is faced with the same challenge. Getting new talent is extremely hard today to support growth.
And I think it'll continue for a while as well.
Agreed.
You mentioned supply chain. Are you guys experiencing supply chain challenges from a transportation perspective or in your ability to access component and raw materials?
Our business, both, frankly. Our business is a little unique the way we're positioned. There was a strategy, that we executed, years ago where our customers, really look at us as a value player in being locally sourced. So we've got, as you said, we've got 13 manufacturing sites around the world. We're based, manufacturing in the US, in France, Poland, Brazil, and China. So we have some flexibility, if you will, with our manufacturing. We can shift around. So we've been fortunate in our strategy from a footprint perspective, and I think that's one of the unique propositions we have to our customers and the commitments we're making. But certainly, you look at what's happening in China right now with lockdowns. There are containers that are sitting outside of China. Fortunately, that has not as great of an impact as it probably is with other businesses that are out there to us. But yeah, there's challenges in retaining the right level for even truckers, right, to bring in product on time. There's a lot more uncertainty when you've got planned shipments from your materials. They don't always necessarily land in the same place. And we also we partner with a lot of the large enterprise brands on bulk material, whether it's a fragrance or cosmetic that they're supplying to us. And we're finding that they're challenged as well in being able to provide that, on time to us, particularly today. So, we've had to be flexible, Andy. We've had to, one of the things that we've had to do a lot of, even more so today, is partner up with our customers and vendors and make sure that we are transparent, and they are as well with us. It's really, this is where you really find your partnerships being important. And it's a regular, everyday, communication that we have with our suppliers and customer base. But it's
now,
tough.
I can imagine it's a lot of work. Are the company's got a presence in Europe, and there's a war going on in Europe. Do you expect that supply chain and transportation issues for your company will be worsened as a result of the current war?
Yeah, it's terrible what's happening there. We don't have as much of a reliance on that part of the world, if you will, from a Ukraine perspective. We don't have operations there, and our supply isn't coming from the Ukraine in a big way. It's probably affecting our vendors more. Certainly, energy. Energy for us, we've seen. We planned for it in our strategic and budgeting process, but certainly not at the levels that we would have anticipated, at that point in time. So I think energy's been one big surprise for us, and certainly have seen that hit levels that we didn't anticipate, and we've had to respond and work with our customers on a pricing perspective on that. But with the exception of that, I think if that prolongs, it just impacts the countries around them. And certainly it could shift macro level economies if that continues. So We've got our eye on it, even though it doesn't impact our day-to-day as much as it would others. It certainly could have a ripple effect.
Right. Are you experiencing energy challenges just in Europe or across the globe?
Well, no, there's a ripple effect. As I said, Europe is feeling it most, today. But we've obviously the price on oil. Obviously that has an effect on everything it's done on the transportation, inbound and outbound side. It also, impacting, the price to just, turn on your facilities, too. So, we've been impacted across the globe. I just say it's sort of almost unprecedented in the European side in terms of how fast it's shifting, given all of the reliance on energy there between Russia and Ukraine.
Wow. Well, let's shift to company structure and leadership. Arcade it has PE partners, and you've commented to me offline how solid that relationship is and how much you enjoy working with them. How has the company's PE partners supported leadership in working through not only the challenges that you've discussed, but also growing the company?
Yeah, Oaktree's been great. They've obviously seen a pretty dramatic shift in the business recently with the pandemic, and I can tell you just from a starting point when I first came on board here, they partnered quickly with me. I've got a really good support network there. When we did the refinancing, they put more investment into this business and really have shown some strong support in us. Having to go to them, that early in my tenure here was surprising to me, Andy, as I said to you, and in our private chats, but they've been extremely supportive from a capital standpoint. But as we've kind of got into strategy, I think they've been really good thought partners as well, challenging myself and the CEO, the CEO to me. And really thinking about things a different way, and leveraging some of their portfolio-based businesses, what they're seeing, so that we can sort of adopt, practices or even sort of have a good tie-in to some of those relationships they've had. So we're very active with them. We have our bi-weekly now, but we used to have weekly calls. Just to sort of give them a heads up on what's happening in the business, get their perspectives on things. From an M&A front too, which we're also pretty active in developing our capabilities on that front. They are extremely supportive partners, looking at this business as a strategic asset to their portfolio.
That's great. The relationship with PE sponsors is either helps or hurts how a company succeeds. In this case, obviously, it's helping. Let me jump back to something you said before. You commented about how you have to be competitive with attracting and retaining employees. What are you doing in particular? What steps is the company taking in order to be competitive and in order to position the company well so you can attract and retain the right caliber of people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, internally first, I think we've been fortunate. I'd say we have a really loyal foundation of employees. We've got good employees tenured with this business. And first and foremost, in the pandemic, we were focused on, obviously safety of our employees first. But, as we've kind of gotten into this growth mode and we've looked to rebound this business from where it was, it's about celebrating their accomplishments. I think we run lean, Andy, just by nature. I think we are a lean organization. But one of the good fallouts of that is, that employees feel like they're empowered and they're able to get exposure to things that they probably otherwise wouldn't do in other environments. And I think it can be, for those that have been around here, they've contributed a lot to our success. And we talked about those challenges, and I mean it. You can't do it without your people. We are fortunate that we've been able to retain our people, celebrate what they're doing, make sure that that they feel like they've got skin in the game and they can help be part of the change. And I think that served us really well. And you feel that at the plant level all the way to the sales offices that we have around the world. I can see it. As far as new talent goes, one, there's compensation's got to be part of it. So we've obviously our go-to-market strategy and retaining talent, or getting new talent, I should say. We are very aware of the market and what's shifted. We've obviously prioritized our people first, but obviously like anything else, you've got to bring in to supplement. we've we've partnered up with good people outside too, and not only have people been coming in through referrals on our on the successes that they're having internally. So we've been able to bring in some people that have been in the network of our people. But we are also not rushing decisions either. So it's important that we get the right person that fits culturally what we're looking for. And I think we've had some success with our reputation as well. So long-winded answer of saying, hey, we're focusing on our people first. We obviously need people on the outside, and I think our reputation and those that come in and look at the opportunity see this as a great way to sort of accelerate their career.
Well, you mentioned that money's only part of it, and you're absolutely right. Creating culture is essential, but the experience that employees have working for an organization, how they're treated, whether they're, like you said, they're empowered, if they have skin in the game, but it's experiential. And especially today with the employment demands that are being driven by younger parts of the people in the working world, it's all about experience. And my experience with the folks who I've had the pleasure of meeting at Arcade, in addition to yourself, you've had people working there for a very, very long time. A company doesn't, and new people as well, but when people stick around at a company, it's not only because they're being paid well. They're sticking around because they enjoy what they're doing, they feel respected, and the overall experience is positive. And I've seen that a lot at Arcade. So kudos.
Yeah, I echo that. I appreciate that, and echoing that, I think that's something that as a leadership team we've talked a lot about, because you can only lead with that so much. At the end of the day, there's more to work. You spend all of your time here, or a lot of your time here, I should say. When you're not with your family. So, how you feel and what you're contributing and what's it adding to your career, I think is super, super important. Shouldn't play that down. That's equally as important.
I agree, George. George, let's talk a little bit about M&A. I know the company has been acquisitive, and give me an idea as to how M&A is going to play into Arcade's future success.
Yeah, I think recent history. I mean, this business came together with two different businesses coming together. So when you talk about Arcade Beauty and how it came together, the rigid and flexible packaging businesses, if you will, that came together and formed this group. It's in our DNA. I think from a business point of view, I'm excited about all the innovation that's happening internally. So I don't want to sort of just speak to the acquisition front, but innovations in our DNA. We've got a multitude of technology solutions that we have. It's what makes us unique as a value player. But the other thing that we have to recognize from M&A, we've developed an internal pipeline. I think there's a lot of great opportunities out there that we need to look at that can, whether it's adding to our existing capabilities, and we're always looking at ourselves as a full turnkey solution. So when we're providing, whether it's a large enterprise beauty brand and we know who they are, or an indie brand, we want to be able to provide them support across the board and be that full turnkey provider, whether it be through sampling or retail solutions. That's as you walk into a Sephora and they're dropping in a sample, that's us. Or if it's buying a retail product off the shelf, we want to be able to sort of support them in that as well, and all the marketing that goes with it. The unique thing that an acquisition could give you is, again, capabilities that we don't have today. So I think we're looking at some strategic things that would be a great complement to our business, and entering into a space that's highly fragmented and bringing together a broader range of technology solutions that we're already offering today that we could enhance our offering to the marketplace. So I'm excited about it. I think it's something that we've been working on for a few years since I've joined here, and candidly, a lot of great opportunities which our Oak Tree partners feel as well. It's a matter of surveying that and really assessing what are the ones that we want to pick in the short term. But it's a great landscape for us.
And how are you funding acquisitions? Are you doing anything unique?
From a debt perspective too, from a market perspective, we are certainly first starting with the Oak Tree folks. They again, I get back to how they feel about us. So it, likely will come through, their support coming in, right? Instead of, sort of levering up. It's typically looked at, bring in some additional capital. Let's sort of, bring some higher return to our investors in these acquisitions, whether it be harmonizing and synergizing, integrating these businesses, whether it's, growing the top line. But, the expectation would be that we would partner with our equity partners and put more money into this business.
Wow. So, George, you're handling a lot. A lot of your peers are handling a lot, given what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
Running a company's finances when you're dealing with constraints is exciting, I'm sure. I'm sure it's very challenging as well. But it sounds like you're handling it well and hopefully having some fun.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, there are other CFOs who are in your position, or maybe. So what advice would you provide to up-and-coming CFOs, or even CFO peers who are faced with circumstances that are similar to what you're experiencing at Arcade?
Well, I think first and foremost, transparency is key. I mean, communication and transparency, and that goes to, we have commitments to our customers. They come first. Our employees as well, by the way, and we have that commitment. And the more transparent you are, and the better you communicate with them and your vendors, staying in front of it. That's huge. We did that with our lender base when we were getting ready for refinancing, and I think it's, paid dividends because we forged some really strong partnerships, not just with PE, but your investors, right? And your customers and your vendors, right? If without those partnerships, you've got, you're in a world of hurt. So, really communicate, really be transparent, be realistic too. I think that's the other thing is, I started with, how do we tackle all these things? We can't do it all, and we've had those internal discussions. We've got great ideas, but you can't do it all, and sort of be realistic and honest with yourself and your leadership team, and do what you can be successful on and execute, right? And get it and do it right. Those are the biggest things I think when you're in this, environment is, do it. And we haven't talked about either, you can't place all the bets that you have out there. I mean, we've gone from a pandemic environment where we were super focused on working capital optimization, liquidity management, all that. And that's still there today because there's still uncertainty, but we've made some choice, bets, right? On inventory, right? The lead times are longer. And so think strategically, don't think all short term, think longer term, have a strategy and stick to it. So that's what I would sort of leave, and I'm sure many of them are out there doing that, but that's what I would leave them with is those have found some success for us here, and I think they'll be really important going forward.
George, I always enjoy talking to you. I love your style. You're very direct, and I always learn something. So I'm grateful that you joined me today on CFOs in Motion. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, likewise, Andy. I appreciate the invite.
This has been
Thanks
great.
so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on CFOs in Motion. If you'd like to learn more about Arcade Beauty, visit www.arcadebeauty.com. Thanks for joining us today on CFOs in Motion. I'm Andrew Zezas for CFOs in Motion and CFO Intelligence. We'll see you again next time.
Thanks for joining us on CFOs in Motion, presented by CFO Intelligence with your host, Andrew Zezas. If you have an interesting topic that you'd like us to discuss here on CFOs in Motion, or if you've got a great CFO topic that you're passionate about and would like to be interviewed on this podcast series or published in CFO Intelligence magazine, visit CFOintel.com. That's CFOINTELL.com. Remember to subscribe to this podcast series on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. This has been CFOs in Motion, presented by CFO Intelligence with your host, Andrew Zezas. We'll see you next time. The opinions and views presented on this podcast by Andrew Zezas are his own and may not be relied upon as fact. The opinions and views of others who appear on this show are their own as well, and may not be relied upon as fact or for any other purpose. Opinions and views and other information are provided for general information and educational purposes only.